Hello everybody, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today this is going to be a little bit of a generic discussion. There won't be any flight footage. I apologize if that's what you're looking for. This is a video I've been kind of working on for a long time, but it's taking me too long. So I think I have to get the information that I have out now. And this is just opinion. There's no fact here. This is just me, how I feel about flight, what I'm looking for, and maybe cautionary words for different sorts of products. But it's going to take me too long, and I worry that people are going to be spending money on stuff that may not turn out like they want to. So without further ado, let's talk about motors first. So I need to move a few vehicles off, and we'll try to touch on each one of these. Okay, so that's a little better. Now the first things I have to talk about is I built two of these, and I built them nearly identically. We got the same camera, same stack. Of course, we've got different motors. We've got different antennas. From the last video you saw, these were the two vehicles I used. This particular vehicle I had first, and I was running more packs through it. You see the capacitor over here on the side. I also had a capacitor on this one. It got snagged on some grass and kind of ripped off. You can see that little bit still sticking up there. But I didn't feel it made any difference. It didn't clean up my video any. I didn't feel like I could tune it any better. So I just, when that one part got torn off, I just went ahead and snipped the rest of it off. Capacitors may do something for you. In my case, with these machines, it didn't do me any good. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to see, and this is a little bit ridiculous, I wanted to see if we had 1100 series prop or motor that could run these props. These are some pretty good props. I don't claim that they're efficient or anything, but you know, we've trimmed these down to run 2.5 inch or maybe even less, and they're very durable, so they don't tend to fold up. The RotorX props are also very durable, but one thing I don't like about them is when you bend them back, they get little waves in them, and then you can definitely hear it in flight. I don't know how those waves impact the performance, but I can hear it, and it always makes me wonder if I'm causing some sort of problem with my vehicle. Maybe the motor's got some extra vibrations or something. But I wanted to look to see how far we could push 1100 series motors to run this prop. And the short answer is, I didn't find one. Now, this isn't an exhaustive test. I don't have thousands of dollars. But what I tried was I started out with some airblade motors, which I do like, and I ran those. I ran those for a lot of different packs, and then I burned out my first motor on pack 26. After I'd gotten it tuned, I flew 26 packs, and then I burned out one of these. I burned out one more before I gave up. Interestingly enough, every time when I mentioned a burnout motor, it was always a rear motor. It was never a front motor. So I would presume that that is actual burning out, because oftentimes what would happen is I would bring it in from a flight and land, hopefully, and then the next time I'd try to fly it, it would sputter. I'd come back, do all the typical checks to make sure the motor was connected properly, and it would still sputter. So I have to presume that something died at the end of that flight. I only had one where it just fell out of the air, like you're flying along, just cruising, and then it tumbled, and that was the end of the motor. So most of the cases, it came the next flight where I noticed that the motor wasn't right. And so I'm running these props. Don't let this fool you. I'm running these props during these tests. So the next up was these cheap, I think they're called Orange85 1106 motors. They're 6,000 kV. Those did not last long at all. Running this prop, and I was, you know, that's abusing them, I know, but that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to find out what I could run. These didn't last long. I burned two of these out relatively quickly. Matter of fact, one burned out on flight 12, and the next one burned out on flight 16. So it didn't last long at all. The King Kong motors, actually burned two of them out, and they lasted the longest. I think I had, where are my notes? Flight 42 is when I burned out my first motor, and flight 67 is where I blew out my next motor. I've been doing this a while. And I actually had this vehicle set up. After I ordered this one and I liked how it was built, I ordered another frame and built this up, and had motors on both vehicles. So these lasted the longest, but still, you know, do you only want to get 60 flights before you're still burning out motors running that prop? But I can say that that seems to be, if we're really abusing motors, that these motors are really durable, because they flew the most of all the motors I tried on this prop. Next up, this isn't necessarily about this prop, so that kind of concludes that test. And what I decided was, after running through some motors for me, until there's somebody else who can do some more real-world testing on motors and running a 3-inch prop, I just don't think it's feasible. I think 2.8 is the maximum. I think 2.5 is probably the sweet spot as far as your motors running many flights and having good thrust and durability. So we need to see a lot more 2.5 millimeter tri-blades. And I do like tri-blades because they tend to corner different, and I do a lot of cornering in my flying space. As you can see, I went down to bi-blades. These are 3-inch RotorX props, and I've been flying those on this vehicle ever since. And it doesn't corner quite like I want it to. And that was my next challenge, was I wanted to see what bi-blades would do on this same vehicle where I had many flights with tri-blades and what the difference is. And I just can't, either I can't tune it to make it fly like I want to, or bi-blades just can't fly like I want them to. That could be completely some sort of confirmation bias, but I tried. I gave it many weeks, many flights. I just couldn't get it there. Okay, that aside. Oh, and I'll mention this one last thing. I love this 1407 on here. I know these aren't new. I've had these motors probably 6-8 months, so they've probably been out several months before that. But this combination of the these are Lumenier props. This combination of props on this vehicle, I really like how this flies. And it's quite light too. I'll get to these motors just a second. Let's weigh this up. So 119.41 grams. Now, up to this point, my lightest had been the 03, and we can see that at almost 140 grams. Now, of course, this has a major deficiency when it comes to weight. We've got a giant-sized CMOS camera up there with one of the bigger lenses, and we've also got 4 individual ESCs with heavy silicone wrap on them. So I think this would be comparable to this, but it still wouldn't get down to this weight. If you don't think that's light, let me know. What should I shoot for when it comes to running a 3-inch on 1400 series motors? So that's enough about this particular vehicle. Let's cover the frame itself. So the bottom plate on this is 2.5 millimeters, and it's 12 millimeters wide. And then these other two plates, they are 1.5 millimeters. And the machine doesn't come with these standoffs. I bought these separately. I believe I got these from Ready Made RC. These are actually slightly lighter than the ones it comes with, which I believe are purple. Now, the things that I like about this frame is I typically am not a fan of pods where everything gets built up from the center. My experience with those is the top always hits something and then the whole pod just explodes, and you've got all sorts of work to get it back up in the air. But this is kind of a variation, and we've seen this. We've seen this with the Eclair. Obviously, this frame is doing it. We can see it a little bit in the Lizard. There's a host of other frames where we've kind of evolved into almost a cage style, but this is a slightly different spin on it. As you can see here, we've got flat plates that come up here, and then it comes back around and it rests on the post. So in theory, if you hit here, then most of the stress is going to be on the rear end of the frame, not necessarily the carbon front end. But they've milled this pretty finely to where actually getting this in here is a little bit of a challenge. So if you do hit fairly even, or you get something centered in here, I think this is going to hold up. I haven't had any troubles with this, and I do think that they have some deficiency here. So before I give it too much praise, I should also say that there are a few things I would like to see improved. You can see it doesn't have any slots in the arms. I think we need to avoid any frame that has slots in the arms. So like this one, this is the Roar or something, and you can see right here it broke, and they're just weaker. So it doesn't matter the thickness, you're creating weak points all along these holes. Everything about this is weak. This one didn't last long. I think I only maybe got a dozen flights before I had a good enough crash where it snapped that arm, and I actually tried to repair it. So the bending that you see, the bending that you see here, that's after a repair even. But this frame itself, I think it's made to put that, what is it, the SQ8 or SQ10, SQ11 camera, and they made a little mount for it, which is very zip tie heavy. So you could technically put some sort of camera up here if you wanted to. I don't tend to worry about having HD footage on micros. I just want it to fly well. I do think this camera could use some additional protection. They could have built this out more, just a little bump, or even come out as an angle and back in. Let me get a pointer. And with this sort of L shape that we have here in carbon fiber, I think we can get rid of this front standoff. And if we can get rid of the front standoff, then we can also get rid of this extra flange area that comes out from this top plate. And we can just use some sort of, we can do, well, mainly what I was thinking was we could put some nylon through here to kind of just stabilize the plates. Because all the force is mainly going to be coming down on it on a straight angle, and then it will be distributed back here. So I think we could make that improvement in just having this slot just come flush, and then we can get rid of the front standoffs. That would also improve our durability where the screws are. And as you can see in both ends, in the front, or the rear and the front arms, we have these little notches, and they're right where the holes are going to be. That's going to be our weak area. So, and I think to avoid that, they should have just come out a little bit further instead of notching it back so much. Just maybe 2 or 3 millimeters out here on each side. That would really shore up these arms. And then we can cut this front end back a little bit too to offset any sort of weight gains, which would be really small. And then do the same thing back here. Also, this gap here, that doesn't really serve a function. I think they should have 2 gaps that run, in our case, looking at it, runs vertically. And that would allow us to secure our battery lead as well. And then we can have that this notch not come out nearly, not come down nearly as far in order to shore up the back arms as well. But this doesn't bother me terribly because I haven't had any problems, but I think it's a couple of improvements that if someone were to make an inspired by frame, that's something they could do. And we could also make this cut out a little bit differently. You can see I've used hot glue and a buzzer. I thought that was a pretty good spot for the buzzer. You know, it's kind of a void. I mean, it's messy. I've been flying this a lot. This made a good spot for the buzzer. I haven't had it give me any troubles, and it kind of clears any area for the wiring that you might need to do for your stack. These little slot, as you can see here, there's one on the other side. Those work out fairly well for our antenna, but if we were to get rid of them, that wouldn't be a big deal because we can go around one of these for our antenna just using a zip tie and some heat shrink, or we can go through this side slot and do the same thing for our antenna. I do think it's going to be a little bit difficult to show me. I wish I should have ordered another one so I could show you with the frame naked. But this cutout here, in my opinion, needs to be done differently as well. And I don't know when it comes to the structural integrity, how much we can cut back to keep this whole top pod kind of assembled. But I'm not too far off of maximum camera tilt, but it's not. As you can see, I can still get my screwdriver under there, so I'm not certain we need to cut that back at all, but if somebody wanted extreme camera tilt, you're probably not going to get much over, say, 75 or 80 degrees. That's ridiculous, but it's something you might look for. So one of the things I was interested in doing was making new holes and shifting the camera back in order to give it a little protection, because I did break this camera on a relatively innocent crash. Hopefully it comes out. I don't know if you can see it very well. There's a mark here and a mark here. This camera broke the housing and started lifting off, and I've repaired it with some super glue. So that's one of the things about these cameras, is we oftentimes are balancing protection with that protection getting in our view, because we really don't want to see it, or at least I don't. I don't mind seeing props, but I sure don't want to see the frame in my view. And as far as mounting the VTX, our camera, our yellow wire goes down here to the OSD, and it comes back up to our VTX. I just use some foam tape and a strategically placed zip tie so that when this comes down, it will bump onto my zip tie. And this keeps it up out of the props, but when I'm in forward flight, it does give me a little bit of up tilt. So I have well, it popped right off there. That hasn't happened before. I would have some pretty good reception when I'm flying, because we do want this antenna kind of high and proud amongst everything. If you're going to build this one, do not use a normal sized ESC and flight controller, because the clearance here in the back is so minimal that I don't think you'll be able to find one that will fit. These are the XJB F25 stacks, and they fit just perfectly. If you get anything any bigger than that, it's probably not going to fit. And I actually tried to shave down one ESC to make it fit, and then I ruined the ESC. So be careful. I really like these stacks. I've used 5 of them now. I think it's 5. And they've all worked great for me. I haven't had any problems with blowing an ESC or the flight controllers giving me any fits. They seem to work. At least for me, they seem to work. The downside is some of the solder pads on this flight board they're really small. You're going to need a really fine tipped iron in order to be able to get them down. So if you have any comments or questions, and I'll bring you some flight footage of this, we'll do a comparison kind of between these two vehicles. I'll organize a couple flights, and we'll take a look at these and how they fly. I really want to explore more motors like this, which we will be doing. But as part of my test, I also was trying out these motors. Let me see which ones I've got here. So this is the Brotherhobby Returner 3. Can you see that? Focus camera. 1106 5100. I also have a set of the 7100s. And I've not been very happy with these motors. That's why they're not on anything. So these motors, I think, are $14 or $15 a piece, and they've just been sitting in a box. I have not been very happy with them all. They're super notchy, and this is going to be hard to demonstrate in camera, but they've got those super strong magnets that a lot of motors now like to tout, the Japanese N52, but they're very inefficient. Matter of fact, the 7100s, if you run them on 3S, let me know, because I never flew the 7100s on 3S because they got so hot on the bench that I couldn't touch them. If you touched them, you had that feeling that you had just, put your hand on the stove and you'd got burned. You're quickly pulling it away. And that was just sitting here running the motors up through Betaflight using the motors tab. They were ridiculous. I did try it on 2S, and I was disappointed with the performance as well on 2S. I thought there were many other motors that performed equally, if not far better, on 2S than this 7100. Well, I've got the 5100 in hand, but I'm speaking of the 7100. The 5100 runs 3S okay. It gets a little warm, but again, I thought the flight times were shorter than I expected, and the flight performance wasn't what I expected. I actually had the 5100s on the Atmospheric Adventures Aeolus. I think that's how it's pronounced. And I took them off because I wasn't very happy with it. These are the HGL Tech Flame motors, or 1104, so these are 1106s, right? 1106s? Yeah, 1106s, 7500 kV. These outperform any of these motors. Matter of fact, I would say if you've got some of these, again, I really don't like delivering bad news all the time. It seems like sometimes I feel like I'm delivering bad news. If you're shopping for motors, if you really want to try these out, go for it. But I just haven't been happy with them. Matter of fact, if somebody really wants these, leave a comment down below and leave a comment that says Brotherhobby, and I'll randomly pick somebody, and I'll throw these in a bubble pack and I'll send them to you. Of course, they've been cut, they've been used, so your mileage may vary with them, but I'm just not going to use them. I'm not going to bother fussing with them anymore. I've spent way too much time. I've tried them on different ESCs, those 7100s that were running so hot. I tried, I think it was 3 or 4 different ESCs because I thought maybe there's compatibility. I did all sorts of flashing with flight controllers and with the ESCs, and I couldn't make the 7100s not flaming hot, and I couldn't make the 5100s perform very well. So I'm done with these motors, and it's really a shame because I love the blue, the blue, the blue. I love the blue. So if you want a set of these, actually I'll send them all to you, all that 6 that I've got here. I'll pay for the shipping as long as you're in the continental U.S. If you're international, the shipping's on you. Put Brotherhobby in your comment. But only put Brotherhobby once, because I'm going to have to go through and count. Oh, this is I think it's the Fire 130. And this was another machine I was looking at. I was thinking about running 3-inch props on this, but after doing the other testing I had, I decided not to. You can see that my VTX got so hot that my little rubber band job of trying to keep the camera in there didn't hold, so I'm going to have to redo that with some zip ties. This is just kind of a fun thing. I wanted to check out the flight performance in this particular configuration with these particular props after I had already concluded not concluded, but decided to go a different way with my testing. And you can see these are quite beat up. I've had a good time with this. This flies fine. I don't think it deserves a video all of its own. There's nothing special about it. I think if we wanted to look for something special about it, it's the fact that it has these little bumps up here. So if you had a circular polarized antenna and it was kind of short, you'd get some protection. But even with these whip antennas, these bumps will also protect it. I think if you're looking at running a battery up here, that's probably a bad idea, because your reception is for possibly RC link or video is going to be a problem for you. Because once the battery gets between you and one of those antennas, your reception is going to be pretty poor. And this space is actually quite narrow. You could get a 3S battery in there quite easily, but you're not going to get it flat. So then instead of being bottom mounted, you'd be top mounted, and some of your weight would really make it top heavy. I don't advise that, but explore it and test it on your own and see what you found. Obviously, I put a big old chunky buzzer on here because when you're testing and you can't find your vehicle, that makes it trouble. Let's talk about batteries. Before you go, I know I've covered this stuff before, but I'm seeing a lot of people talk about this stuff on Facebook. So if you see this conversation up, you might want to advise them on some of the information that I have here, or something I might say. But, I mean, to give you some idea, I went through and picked out a few batteries. I've got scads of these batteries. I've got three of these bags that are either 2/3 full or all the way full of micro batteries. So they range from, well, I have one bag for my big 4S batteries, but they range from about 800 down to some of my smaller batteries, which are 300 mAh for like indoor flyers. Milliamp, not mAh, sorry. So let's just get a few of these out. And I know I did this, but I think I forgot to cover one thing. I went back and watched that video, and either I missed it a second time, or I just didn't see it. In my opinion, XF Power and ZOP aren't worth your money. I wouldn't bother. Unless you're looking for a bench battery, I just wouldn't bother. I saw an image on Facebook where somebody had taken the wrapper off of one of these and found that it had a blue stamp on it that was marked 25C. I didn't have that same experience. You can see it says 70C up here. That is nonsense. These batteries are junk. This came out of this case. I also took the case off of it because of that Facebook posting. Look at this lead. That is ridiculously long. Do we need a lead that long? I guess if you had a battery that was going to loop around and plug into a hard-mounted connector, maybe, but these are really long. And I brought out some of these others. I'm not a fan of Bonka batteries. I think they sag hard right away and their flight time is short. They may test differently on a bench, but I'm not a fan. I won't be bothering to buy any more. And I've tried all three versions of the Bonkas. I didn't grab one out. I've got a couple of 2S, and this is 4S. I've got a couple of these and a couple of 3S. I mean, they're okay at very best. But for the price, no, not for the price. If you got some, they're probably working for you, and you might be saying, oh, he's crazy. But I'm just comparing my flight experience with what I have with other batteries. Tattoo batteries have a great reputation, and they sag hard at the end, in my experience. And I've got a 650 and a 450 out here. I've got a 3S and a 2S 650. I don't have, or not 2S, 3S and a 4S. And I've been flying this 450 on this vehicle. And this combination of 1407, what are my kV on these? I forget. 4,000 kV, and these components at this weight, I can get over 4 minutes of flight time with this little 454S battery, which I think is pretty good. And so I've been flying these a lot more. Even with the short lead that I don't like, what I've found is that I really pinch these things together. I push them back this way, and then I run my battery strap all the way across, and that makes it stay in place, which is, you know, I don't want the batteries wiggling around. So tattoo batteries are expensive, but they are pretty good. They do sag. They fall off right at the end, so when you start to get the low battery warning, you need to bring it in right away. I'm talking 10 seconds or less. You definitely need to get off the throttle. Don't do one that last dive or something like that, because the throttle up, you might come tumbling down. These GNB batteries, I like these batteries. I bought some more of them. You see I've got the 450s, I got some 350s that I didn't get out as well, and the 3S battery. These are really good. I haven't tested their 2S batteries yet, but the 3S batteries, these are my favorites. These are the ones I fly on and on and on. The Pulse Racing batteries, they don't perform as well as the tattoo batteries, and they're either just as expensive or nearly as expensive. So I've got 4 of these, and I won't buy any more. This actually is from ReadyMadeRC, and this comes with an XT60 by default. It's not a half bad battery. It's a little bit of a challenge getting that thick 16 gauge wire into an XT30, but it can be done. It comes with a fairly decent lead length, and you can get those strapped down this way and run your battery strap around. It's a pretty good battery. I haven't noted it falling off at the beginning or at the end with some a sag. But yeah, it's a pretty good battery. It's pretty light as well. So it's not bad, but it's not my favorite. These are my favorites. And this Eachine batteries, these are the 3S. These are the, this says 40C. These used to be rated, I think it was 80C. And maybe I got the wrong ones, but these are okay, again, but they're not great. You know, you get these from the same place, you might as well just get these. Unless you're desperate for more batteries and these are out of stock, which is often the case. Okay, that's enough about batteries. But I've seen these, and I've seen these come up on Facebook and RC groups posting of, are these any good? And my answer is no. They are not good. You shouldn't waste your money. You know, if this battery was $1.50, maybe. But it's not $1.50. You're getting really close to paying these prices for batteries that you're not going to enjoy. In my opinion, you're going to have a highly efficient vehicle in order to enjoy either one of these two brands of battery. I'm trying to think of what I should cover here. I didn't make notes. I'm just kind of winging it here. This frame is the Newt from Ready Made RC, and I think if you can fly and tune this thing, you are a magician. I could not get this thing to fly very well at all, and I think it has to do with this is super sensitive to any sort of vibrations, whether it comes from your prop or your motor. And as you might expect with these little tiny arms, that is the case. One of these arms did snap a little bit, and I did a repair on them. I suspect it was this one. But I tried for a week back in the summer to get this thing running. You know, it's got a single stack. I kind of thought it would be the ultimate multi-GP racer. You know, it would be super light and almost no wind resistance from the arms, so it would be a winner. But unfortunately, that did not work out well. New stuff. Let's talk about new stuff coming. So this build, there's part of it. This is a top canopy. It goes with it. This is the Vendetti. It's a 140. You can see it's got a low deck, so you can top mount your battery. So your battery goes right into that housing. I decided to do this. Another 4S with the Armaton Oomph motors. Those are 1407 3850 kV. Excited to give those a spin, but I screwed up. I got a flight controller on there that only supports 3S, and I want to run 4S. So I went and got a different one. Now I just need to rework this thing. So this will be coming sometime soon. Maybe I'll start working on this one again tonight. Need to pull everything out of there and start fresh. I covered these guys a little bit. We'll be seeing more of those in the future. The Atmospheric Adventures Aeolus. I'll do a video on that, although I don't think it's going to be all that exciting. Oh, here's a new frame. What's this one called? I got to get my... Here we go. It's called the Quattuor. Is that right? Quattuor. It's 152 millimeters, and it's supposed to run 4-inch props. And I did a bit of dry fitting here, and you know, of course, it's got the Armaton quality of the carbon, and I've got some standoffs that would work, and I have some red anodized screws that make it look nice. So the big limitation of how I have things currently worked out is this is your maximum camera angle. Well, not quite maximum, real close. You can get more because it does tout having a 90-degree camera tilt. You move the screw up here, then of course you've got more depth down here in order to get your camera more vertically if you want to learn to fly, or you fly like Matty Stunts. He hasn't been posting much recently, which is kind of... I enjoy his videos. I wish he would post more. But he's probably busy. Everybody's got a life. So I'm planning on building this with 4-inch props. Like I said, I've got some new 4-inch props on the way. I'm going to try some of the... I think they're 4-inch versions of these that I'm going to get, because I like those. I had a prop out here I was going to use as an example, so now I'm going to be down a prop. Anywho, these are RaceKraft 4040s, kind of boring props. Let's get 2 out. Just kind of a rough layout. I don't have the motors yet, but this thing is going to be all prop. And if it can hold together... well, that's out of shot. If this thing can hold together, it just might be an outright rocket. Should be a lot of fun. And 152 millimeters. I thought the 160 that I had that was a pod, or the stack, I call it a pod, I don't know what the real term, but basically everything's built on top of each other. But that had a full-size CCD camera on it, and that thing broke apart every time I'd crash it, so it meant it didn't fly it all that much. But I'm going to run 1407 motors with this. I picked up the RS 1407 4100 kV from my RC Mart, and I'm going to run these props over here with the 4-inch version of those and build this out. So hopefully that's interesting. I think it's fairly exciting myself. I think we got plenty of room in the stack to, you know, put our VTX and our receiver in there. We should be just golden. I do like especially how they created this notch for our motor wires, because the pictures on the Armaton website don't show the motor wires going in. They put ESCs on the arms. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use another one of these F425 stacks from HGLRC. So that's pretty cool, and that was, I think, $30. Before we move on to new products that are whole products that'll be coming, let's cover one other thing. Where'd it go? Okay. So this is a new RotorX prop, and I tried these on this motor, and they performed pretty well. but I prefer how these fly. These, I think, are more flexible than these are, and these are very durable. I have bent these. Yeah, this one's got a pretty, maybe. I've been flying these props on this vehicle the most, and these are very, very durable, and I like how these fly. These are very, very close, but not quite, and I did try to retune to get that same sort of performance, and it just, you know, as a pilot, you might have a certain prop that become favorites for you. Right now, I'm in love with these Lumenier props, but these are good props. My flight times came in really, really close to the same, and that was something else that pushed me back to these props, was that my flight time really wasn't increased, even though these props are almost a half gram lighter than these props. So, things to think about, something that I learned there. I think I'm glad to see RotorX continuing to evolve in the prop design. I think typically they make some of the best micro props in the game. They don't always suit us for every purpose, but they are very, very good. Now let's talk about new stuff. Okay, QAV105. This has been fine. I've only flown it a bit. You can see I did add a beeper to it, and I also had to put a new antenna on it because I had a crash. And as it's been noted many times in the RC groups, that the antenna that came with and the glue that they used is terrible weak, and so it comes right off. So I actually even hot glued the other antenna down, and it still came off, and I lost it in the yard somewhere. So my review will be a little bit skewed, but that will be coming soon as we get some weather. The best day in the last 4 or 5 days has been winds of about 35 miles an hour. So, and today is severe thunderstorms, so there was no flying today at all. We had hail and everything. This is the Dinosaur from Furry, and my out-of-box experience with this was not good. This is the stock camera that it came with, and it did not come with these wires connected. These would be the wires we'd use to connect it to an OSD, because the OSD does support, or the flight controller does support an OSD. So in the time that I went to set up this camera after rewiring it, I noted, one, the camera would just slide around in here. It wasn't mounted very well at all. Basically, the nose, or this ring around the camera, was what kept it from just falling out of the vehicle, and I thought that was horrible. I was really disappointed with my out-of-box experience. So anyways, between getting this wired up and setting up the OSD, I had these goggles sitting here on my desk, and I did record a bit of it. The video out of this was horrible. It had lines all over the place. It was just terrible. And you'll hear this all again in my review, but I want to get this out right away. So unless you see other people with vehicles where this camera is working normally, or they've substituted this camera out for something else, that's something you need to be very much aware of, is the board supports an OSD, but it doesn't come wired from an OSD. This camera gets really hot, hotter than any all-in-one that I've ever used, and I don't think I had it on for 4 minutes consecutively, and I was powering it via USB, but this camera ended up dying. I never got a flight with this camera. It died here on the bench, so that went away. So I grubbed up one of my own cameras and I put it in there, and then I created a couple of zip ties to actually keep it in place. It took quite a bit of work to, I think I have it on pretty straight and it's not crooked or anything, so that's in good shape. Another thing that kind of skewed me on the out-of-box experience was the antennas. These, of course, weren't the ones they did. They had black ones, and they were around this back bar here, and the antennas would just flop down. And they may have done that to get it in the box, but still, you can't fly it that way. So you've got to cut that stuff off, because it would come right down into the prop line, no doubt. I'm sure that we would have had, if a lot of people fly that machine, the way it comes, they're going to end up with chopped up antennas. Mine did come with the FrSky, I think it's the XM Plus that's in there, and it does come with dual antennas. Oh, also I noticed in crashes that the clearance on the props, you can actually see right there, that is a mark from prop strikes, that after you have a crash, that this kind of shifts around a little bit, and so I would tend to just kind of push things around until I could spin the props and I wouldn't hear that ticking noise. See, this one you can actually hear it. See, it's... That's what I'd have to do to make it fly. So something's amiss. If the Lizard was like this, you know, I hear a lot about this Lizard, and I never had one to test, but if this is like the Lizard, it flies well, but I'm not that impressed. I think the Leader 120 flies way better than this, and it comes tuned. This one didn't come tuned. So, I don't know. Food for thought. keep that in your back pocket when you're doing some shopping. I'll have full reviews on this as well. This video is going to be terrible long, and that was my intent. Oh yeah, the Tiny King Kong Tiny 6. This has been around for a while, but I just got one. Ignore a lot of these batteries. It comes with 5 of these. You get 5 canopies in here, and it flies pretty good. I also got the version that has the real inexpensive radio, which kind of, I think, overprices the package. It was like $117 for that package with the radio, the 5 batteries, extra canopies, extra props, and the machine. But I do like how the machine flies, and the radio seems to work just fine. I don't think it's got bad range or anything of that nature. So I'll be bringing this in. I really don't have any complaints. I did have a fun experience. I took this to where my girls swim, and they have like a child care center and with a playground over there. So I was flying it kind of at dusk around there, and 3 boys kind of snuck up on me, and so I spent the next half hour to 45 minutes talking about RC stuff and FPV with those boys. We talked about Christmas ideas, and I showed them some websites where their parents can get some stuff that might fit their budgets. But I enjoyed that experience. I wish I had more opportunities like that. But the lights for the playground kicked on, and I was able to fly a few more packs. So that was a good time. I don't get that opportunity very often. Usually, my flight time has to come when I'm not with the kids, not when I am with the kids. So that was kind of fun, and I'll be reviewing this up. I'll be flying it inside. I've already got a little bit of outside footage, and I'll tell you, if you're looking at this machine already, and the price point is something that meets your budget, I think it's pretty good. You can get the vehicle, and I think the batteries and everything that's in this box for $69 without the remote. So that remote being $50, I think that's a little too much. Maybe my math is off. My math is off there. The downside of this vehicle is it uses the old tiny whoop connector, not the new PH20. But you can easily swap that out if that's something that you desire. Okay, let's get down to the big point. I hope I haven't lost too many of you, because this might be worth your time. So I got one of these. It's the Holybro Copus 1, and this is a vehicle that's been covered and covered and covered and covered, and I probably have to do some sort of review. But when that review is concluded, if this thing is still intact, which I suspect it will be because it's very well made, I'm giving it away. And you can get this. So we're doing 2 giveaways. The Brotherhobby motors, the blue ones over here, let me pull those out. 6 of those, 5100s and 7100s. They were all working conditions when I last connected them. I'll pay for shipping on these for anyone in the continental U.S. And then if you want in on the Copus 1, which I like, I don't get much of an opportunity to fly a 5-inch. I don't think flying a 5-inch in my backyard is a good idea, although I've done it quite a bit here recently. But I don't get too crazy, because these vehicles are serious vehicles, and I don't want to damage anyone's property or hurt anyone or go through a window or something like that. Interestingly enough, with this one, if you're a deviation user, I did have fail-safes with this. So I had to take this and put this on my my QX7, my FR Sky radio, and then it worked normally. So that's something else you need to know if you're a deviation user, that you might have fail-safes. And I tried multiple protocols on solving that issue, but I kept having fail-safes, and I had fail-safes at relatively close range, and that was what made me think I did something wrong. So this is a good vehicle. You know, it's $300 or thereabouts. I'll cover this in a little bit more detail. So we're going to be giving this away as well, and I'll give this away at the end of when I've gotten a review. I don't think I'm gonna. It shouldn't take too long, because I've pretty much got it tuned. I just need to go out and find some space to fly, which is probably going to be one of my more boring videos, because I haven't found any interesting places to fly where I have trees and other things to go around. Pretty much the spaces that I've found to fly where I have access is pretty much just wide open grass. Down below, if you've made it this far, you already heard about the Brotherhobby. I think I said to put Brotherhobby in your comment. So you'll need to do that. And you can also enter to win this, the Copus 1. So let's say, let's just put H. No, that doesn't work. Dang, I was thinking about putting HB, Holybro, Brotherhobby. I need to come up with a keyword for this drawing, so you guys don't have to leave a bunch of stuff, and people who just come passing by don't necessarily know what's going on. Yeah, just put BH. BH or HB, either one of those will get you into the drawing. I'll do the random comment picker, and I'll just click it a bunch of times. I probably won't make a video about the results. I can if you want me to, if you definitely want to see how many times I have to click. the random comment picker to find somebody who put HB or BH in their comment to select the winner. I can definitely do that. I just don't know how riveting of entertainment that's going to be. But anyways, this stuff needs to find a home. This is project materials. I don't care for these, but I think whoever gets this, you're going to enjoy this, because this is a high quality machine. They have used a lot of very high quality components. There's really nothing to be too upset about as far as meeting a budget. Yeah, these props probably aren't the best in the world, and these motors aren't the biggest, most powerful motors in the world, but it flies really well. I don't fly a lot of 5-inchers, so I can't tell you it's a burner or not, but it flies really well. And I've already got one. I've got 2 5-inchers that barely fly, hardly ever. I'll probably at some point in time give the other one away or tear it down to do something with it. And the other one, it's the Furry Bee. I think it's a 210. You know, in case I ever have a scenario where I'm going to go hiking and go flying or something, I'll have something that I can do that with, and maybe throw a GoPro on the top of it. Okay, so I've got 45 minutes worth of footage on here. Hopefully I can boil that down under... God, I got to be able to get that under 40 minutes. That's too long a video. Okay, so leave your comment down below to get in on the drawings. It needs to be BH or HB. Either one of those two letters will get you in the drawing below. If you have comments or questions about anything that's in here, please put those in the section down below as well. I'll try to create links to the various things that I have here, and you can go visit the websites that they came from to look at the prices or the specifications, or double check some of the information that I'm giving away here. Oh, one last thing I forgot. A few of you have probably already left your comment and moved on, but those of you who stuck around, I've had these motors a while too. These are the Rotor Geeks 1407 3600 kV, running them on a XBL Tomo frame, and I've been very unhappy with these as well. You can see they're soft mounted, my stack is soft mounted, and I have a yaw twitch that I just can't get rid of. And again, these are those super notchy motors. So I am either I don't know how to tune for a super notchy motor, or super notchy motors aren't worth bothering with. This hasn't seen much flight, and that's disappointing because it's a beautiful frame. Alright, that is officially it. I've got nothing left for you. I hope you enjoy. If you like these sort of things, you know, put a thumbs up or a comment and say, hey, I really enjoyed kind of the potpourri discussion that you had. I don't generally do it. I try to make most of my videos fairly pointed, so when you come to them, you know what the video is about. You might get small nuggets of extra information, but one thing I thought, I've been building some of this stuff since May, and I kept thinking there was going to be a singular purpose for creating a video about any one of these topics, and it never came to me. And finally today, as I was driving home from soccer, I thought, you know what, I need to sit down, I need to talk about all this stuff. As you probably guessed, the camera quit recording, so I had to go back and figure out where I was. But basically, I had that moment where I was at soccer, and we had 2 rain delays in the game, and I had plenty of time to look at stuff, and I thought, you know, I'm repeating myself in Facebook. I think I need to take all these little bits that aren't so pointed, you know, projects or videos, and I need to get this information out because I think it could be useful. If you found it useful, please let me know. I might do more of this sort of thing in the future, but I think I've covered about 5 months worth of stuff that never really made it into a video that was a targeted video. I look forward to the discussion we might have in the comments section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.